Hello there, NFL DFS fans. Welcome back to the DFS 5-Pack. My name is Ryan Kostrowski, here with my partner, Matt Bellman, as well. We also have some guests joining us this week. This is Jeremy and Stefan from Roto Beast. Say hello, gentlemen.
Hey, how you guys doing out there? This is your boy Roto Beast. We got my boy Jeremy, known as DFS Dudes. We're from DFSCheatSheet.com. We have, a brand new optimizer. We've been out for about 2 months. Things have been going absolutely crazy. Check us out at DFSCheatSheet.com. And yeah, let's get into this video.
If you want the website, I'll put it down in the description section. Just go ahead and take a look at it. But we've been talking sports a lot this week, and we thought it was a good opportunity to come on here and bring them on as guests. We're going to be just doing some cross promotion together. The nice part is Matt and I do things differently than they do. They more focus on FanDuel. Matt and I more focus on DraftKings. Also, our detail for our customers is different than what they do. They're going to be more of your full service optimizer, where a lot of what we do is going to be talking through exact picks, kind of writing it up, do a lot of podcasts and things like that. So it's a good bag of tools from both sides that if you're interested, you can combine the two of them. If you play on both FanDuel and DraftKings, it could be a good opportunity for you. That all being said, we don't want to bore you to death with all this. We will talk about that more at the end, but let's get into the picks, boys.
Let's get after it. Week 2, finally. I mean, it's so funny. I was telling Ryan when we were talking, we were making a video yesterday. Yeah, we were talking about Deshaun Watson. It's so early in the season. It's week 2. But with the NFL, once you get into week 4, you're already a quarter of the way done. I mean, it's crazy like that, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. It flies, definitely.
Absolutely. So first thing I want to talk about is I want to give a look over to Dion Lewis of the Tennessee Titans. There's a variety of reasons that I like him. Coming off a real big week 1. And Matt, if you could recall, I've been saying this for weeks now. He's going to be the guy in Tennessee, in my opinion. I think by year's end, he'll be getting about 2/3 of the touches compared to Derrick Henry. In my opinion, he's just a better running back. He's more elusive. He hits the hole better. He's useful in the passing game. Now with the loss of Delaney Walker, I think his touches could only increase because they just don't have that many weapons outside of him and Corey Davis. So he's going to be utilized in the pass game. Under any circumstance, I cannot envision a game flow where he is like not active in it. Like I just cannot see Tennessee winning this game by 25 points or something like that, where they're just going to simply be pounding it down with Derrick Henry. So I like Dion Lewis in all formats. I think it's really easy to talk about the low-cost guys and the high-cost guys. So sometimes I like to, bring up these guys in the middle, and that's where aligning yourself with experts like this can really give you kind of an edge that maybe you won't get somewhere else. I like Dion Lewis in any format because DraftKings plays in the PPR format. I expect him to continue to see more and more of the touches in the Tennessee system.
Ryan, I agree. Real quick, do we want to let the people know how we're doing this? With you and Stefan doing the cash game plays and then me and Jeremy talking GPP?
Sure. We're going to talk cash in the beginning. I focus on cash games on the DraftKings side. Stefan will start talking about his picks on the GPP side or on the cash side for FanDuel. So I'm more DraftKings. I don't know his pricing on FanDuel because it's not a format that I utilize a lot, but he's still completely underpriced to me in the DraftKings format.
Yeah, I think that Dion Lewis is like your running back darling, kind of your running back version of Emmanuel Sanders. Maybe not so much, but you like him a lot. You think he's in for a big year. For everything you said, I can get on board. First, and the other point is, Vrabel came from New England. Now he's there. Dion Lewis came from New England. Now he's there. I think you don't give enough credit to Derrick Henry. Again, I told you he had that touchdown that was called back yesterday. But I don't think Henry's really all that good either. So I get your point. I think that, like you mentioned, it's easy to pick out all high-priced guys, but Dion Lewis is kind of like that cog in the machine that can be productive in all formats. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I can get on board with Dion Lewis. The thing about Dion Lewis is Houston's defense at some point is going to come to the table and they're going to play really solid against the run and the pass. But the thing about Tennessee, I'm with you, Ryan. I can't see a scenario where Tennessee wins this game by 25 points. I can see Dion Lewis being a factor on third down early on, and if Derrick Henry doesn't go and have some success early, I can see him getting a bit more of a bit more share of the carries there too. I do like him for his pass catching ability, and I think that this could be a game where there's a ton of third downs for Tennessee in this game. So I get on board with Derrick Henry, and I don't know what his price is on FanDuel. I haven't looked there at his price on FanDuel, but at 5K on DK, that's a pretty good pick.
Yeah, he's pretty cheap, which we might get a better cheap play come weekend. We don't know who's active and who's inactive. But as things stand on Tuesday afternoon, if some other guy becomes much chalkier in this kind of price range, then maybe I shift him over to more of a GPP play. But as it starts early on, this is a guy that's going to get enough touches at this price tag that it's difficult for me to see him not paying off some version of value. With no Delaney Walker, who else are they really going to throw to? And whether you got Gabbard or Mariota in there, it's not like either one of these guys are great down the field throwers.
They got problems in Tennessee right now. I'll tell you that for damn sure.
Absolutely.
Regardless. And I don't know if that's good for Lewis, but it's not going to necessarily hurt Lewis because of everything that you've talked about, because he's like their third down back. I'm not really excited about this play. I'm not going to lie, but he's only $5K. And again, I just think he's that cog in the machine. I don't know if you want to hop in, Stefan.
I mean, I'm with you. I definitely like him. I think it's a very good price that you can kind of throw in your flex. And, he's a good format. He's going to catch a lot of he's a good play pretty much in all formats. Going to catch a lot of balls. Definitely get you some upside. Tennessee, I think, honestly, they're going to have to throw the ball. I definitely like Lewis. He wasn't a guy I necessarily was looking at in the beginning, but, after you guys kind of talk about it, I definitely understand why you guys like him on DK.
For me, this is one of the picks I think I will use that won't be ultra chalky, that when I go here and ultimately he has a good day for us, it'll help us get up to that money. Because every week in cash games, and one of the things that's been a benefactor for us is picking out those 1 to 2 guys that aren't super chalk that allow you to pass that threshold relatively easily. So we've talked him over. Why don't we move to one of your guys, Stefan? And I can already tell you I agree with you. Go ahead.
6,500 on FanDuel. And, I mean, like I said, third down, right? So he has seven targets, 5 receptions, $6,500. The price point is this. What other guys at $6,500 are you going to play, especially in a flex spot that's going to have the opportunity to get 7 targets, right? You'll take the 7 targets at $6,500 all day long for the opportunity. Then you throw in the fact that he's going to get carried as well.
Some of the upside comes from this too. Houston did not play a great game the opening week against New England. They were a bit rusty. They got a little better as the game progressed. But Tennessee now lost Delaney Walker, one of their main targets in the passing game. You might ultimately have a backup quarterback coming in. Even if it is Mariota, he might be somewhat limited with his mobility. We're yet to know about that one. If Tennessee gets down because Houston plays a much better game and they need to come back, Dion Lewis could get a bunch of catches. So there is potential upside there as well. I think we've covered him. Steph,
I only want to say one thing, just a real quick, just to be a little bit devil's advocate, because it seems like everyone's just talking him up, and I know you guys don't really want to disagree with Ryan yet, but I'm not afraid at all to disagree with Ryan. So the only thing I'll say about Dion Lewis that I don't think he's like a lock is because of everything you've said about no Delaney Walker, Blaine Gabbert. That offense sucks. Houston's defense isn't bad. I could see Tennessee really struggling to move the rock here. So I like the play, but I don't necessarily think we should get ahead of ourselves here.
That's probably why I like it, Matt, to be honest with you. And maybe it turns out to be more of a tournament play, but I like it for the standpoint, exactly what you said. The thing is that I like to target guys in tournaments from the other side of the favorite spot of it because they're going to be throwing the ball, and I like his ability to catch the football out of the backfield. Derrick Henry has not been impressive yet in his career, right? So if they've also shown they'll yank him. If they get down and it is a backup quarterback situation, even at that, if they're down, they're going to throw it. Dion Lewis is a good target, and that's why I think I'm agreeing with Ryan. I'll disagree with anybody though.
Derrick Henry, you guys. I get it. He looks to be a solid play. Ryan, you've been on him for a while, so I just have to give you a little bit of shit about it.
Yeah, one of our longtime customers, Nick Ryan, made the comparison of Derrick Henry to Trent Richardson. And while that's being kind of mean because Trent Richardson was terrible, Derrick Henry, every time I watch him, he reminds me of that. He just doesn't see the hole as well as you would like him to, and he ends up running into people where there is space in other areas. He doesn't have that, nobody's Todd Gurley and Le'Veon Bell, but he doesn't have that ability to slide in and out of holes like they do. So we'll be here all day if we spend 20 minutes on each pick, so I think we should move along. Stefan, you wanted to bring up Emmanuel Sanders as the guy who probably gushed over him as much as anybody going into week 1. I can already tell you I support you instantly.
Yeah, no, I definitely like Emmanuel Sanders. The funny thing about him is, we spent all Saturday night till about 4 a.m. going back and forth. Me and Jeremy did, and he kept talking about Emmanuel Sanders and over and over. And I was like, well, I would love to kind of see, how they do week 1, how Case Keenum kind of does in the new offense. And sure enough, the guy comes out. I mean, he had a great day. He led the team in targets, had 11 targets, caught 10 of them for 135 yards and a touchdown. The price, I mean, it didn't go very much at all. 6,800 on FanDuel, 6,200 on DraftKings. I think he's a really, really solid play at a very fair price tag. I'm not going to say he's necessarily going to have that game he had last game, but even if he got us 15, 16 fantasy points on FanDuel at a 6,800 price tag, that's something that we would definitely take, for our cash games. So I definitely think Sanders is a very, very good receiver that we could throw in our cash games for FanDuel and for DraftKings as well.
I have zero arguments against that. You guys know I have a serious love affair with this guy moving into this year, and I talked to Matt about this one a lot. And after we saw his performance, you're like, okay, it really, really makes sense. Case Keenum has a serious love for throwing to slot receivers. And with Sutton back in the lineup now, he's going to hit up that slot. He was looking for Sanders all day. And now he goes up against an Oakland defense that –
that's what I was going to say. It's a cherry on top for sure. I mean, we've seen what the Rams did. All their receivers pretty much did great yesterday against Oakland. So, I mean, I think this is a really good spot that Sanders, I mean, anybody could bust on any week, but, I mean, I think he gives you a solid floor. Definitely, and that's what we're looking for your cash games.
That's the key for me. The absolute key for me for looking at it last week was that he was moving back to his natural spot, which is the slot, and that's why I absolutely loved him. I think he's a slot receiver. He gets to go back to his natural spot, the slot position. He's an absolute mismatch. The thing is, when you go off on FanDuel, at least from FanDuel's standpoint, when you go off, everybody's going to be looking at you. His price didn't move very much, and he's probably going to have a much higher ownership share this week, which makes him really good for cash games as well.
I was going to say, you just took the words right out of my mouth, man, because we have like the same way of thinking. He's going to be supreme chalk here. That's just what it is. You guys haven't said it yet. You guys don't care about that because, they're mostly cash game players. And in football, it's a smart way to play, to be quite honest. But I envision him being the highest on wide receiver.
I don't know if I'll go that far, but he's going to be one of them. He's going to be right up there. And it makes too much sense. Until his price escalates, he's going to continue to get love from Case Keenum, who has just turned into a good quarterback. Not a great quarterback, but I would call him average to above average at this point. He can move the rock, threw a couple of picks last game. But he really came into his own last year, and they were talking about this throughout the entire game, that Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders are like kids in a candy store this year. They're like, we finally got a guy who can throw the ball a little bit because they've been playing with scrubs for several years, even going back to like Peyton Manning's last season when he wasn't the Peyton Manning that we all loved anymore.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
So
I would say the tournament version, Matt, would be just pivot in the same game with the same team and take Demaryius Thomas because he's going to break out as well. He's the absolute pivot off of Emmanuel Sanders for sure.
1,000%. Same spot. Obviously, he's not in the slot. Probably a better wide receiver. Not even probably. A better wide receiver that will be at a quarter of the ownership. Literally a quarter. I'm so with you there. I'm not saying that Sanders is a bad play because
I'm just saying if you want to pivot off the chalk, that's the
I agree.
Right, because trying to figure out who scores touchdowns. Sanders got his last game. D. Thomas could score 2 of them this week. I think Sanders is the little bit better play, but we talk about the risk versus reward in the ownership game. While Sanders is the better play on paper, Thomas will have a quarter of the ownership, as you brought up, or maybe less than that for all that we know. So your potential is there. And if he catches the touchdowns this week, that's a good way to come out ahead.
Yeah, that's what I like.
Too, right? I mean, we talk about all the time with the free squares. I think that's his ownership level actually kind of makes him maybe a free square on FanDuel for cash. I mean, take a free square, take the guy who's going to be chalk, lock him in your lineup, move on to the next pick.
All right. So we all love Sanders. It's a hard one not to like. He is going to be popular. Get him in your cash lineups. He's probably not going to replicate what he did last week because last week he had a huge game. He doesn't need to replicate it. He does 2/3 of that, and it's still a really good week.
Yep.
All right, moving along. One of my other cash game picks, and this is a guy, Matt, I'm sure you can get on board with. I did kind of want to see him week 1, get him into a better situation. Now this week going to New Orleans. Jarvis Landry did what I wanted him to do week 1, and that was become the target monster that we expected out of him. 15 targets, went over 100 yards. Now he goes from playing Pittsburgh in a torrential, rainstorm and windstorm into New Orleans. We just saw, what was the combined point total in New Orleans last week? 4,000 points or something like that?
Sure.
The New Orleans defense didn't look anything like it did last year. I expect him to play better this week, but I like Jarvis Landry week in and week out to be a steady cog in the machine, to be a target monster for the Cleveland Browns, who if they're winning in this game, it's probably because of Jarvis Landry. If the game is close, Jarvis Landry is going to need to see some balls. If New Orleans lays a beatdown, Jarvis Landry is going to get a lot of easy catches for short patterns.
Side note, how good would Jarvis Landry be if he had like one of these elite QBs throwing to him? Like, I can't wait. I like Tyrod. We've talked about this, Ryan. Tyrod's the perfect bridge, but I think Baker Mayfield is going to be one of these guys that really can move the ball down the field. And Jarvis Landry is really freaking good. I think he's kind of underrated because he hasn't had a great QB to throw him. But that's really neither here nor there right now. For your point this week, yeah, how could you not like Landry here? In a spot, the Saints is a tough spot for the Browns. I mean, let's just call it what it is after the Saints, let up 40-some points to Tampa Bay at home. That being said, their defense did show a lot of holes. I think the Browns, had a nice comeback last game. I don't think this game is necessarily a blowout like everyone thinks it's going to be. And even if it is, like we've alluded to with Dion Lewis, the Browns will be throwing. He's a target monster. In any PPF format, he's a legit number one wideout. That's what it is.
Gentlemen, care to throw your 2 cents in?
I mean, you pretty much covered everything that that I was thinking about it. As far as we've seen what wide receivers did last week to the Saints. We actually had a lot of Saints defense for GPP. We thought that they were going to be good like they were last year, and
24.2%.
Yeah, we had a lot, and they got torn up, and so I mean, I could definitely see going right to the well with Landry, and as far as PPR, the guy's a really good cash can play, very fair price tag. I mean, there's not really much else to say. I definitely like him on DraftKings.
I would add that I love that you guys both brought a receiver that has a great pivot to the table for cash and then the tournaments. Because for me, I think Josh Gordon would be a great pivot off of Landry. I think that it's just another spot where there's a great example of a cash play, and then there's a great example of a pivot to go for your tournament lineup. So you could absolutely load up Landry and cash and then pivot right off of him and go to Josh Gordon, who has huge tournament upside. Landry will be popular. I love the pick. I love that there's a pivot for tournaments in the same game from the same team from both Sanders and Landry.
So I'm going to talk myself up for a second, which most people know I'm not scared to do. I feel like we're pretty good at the cash game thing over here. And picking guys like Jarvis Landry who don't need to score to be productive, I think is a big part of what Matt kind of took my line, and he uses it all the time now, a cog in the machine. Jarvis Landry has no game script where he's not going to be part of this game. He's going to get targets. He's going to give you something. There's not going to be very many days where Jarvis Landry goes 1 catch for 13 yards. He is always going to be a part of the game plan unless some like an injury happens and you cannot control that. He doesn't need to score to be effective, and that is big for me because it offers you a really steady floor.
It's huge. He's a target monster. I mean, I don't remember the exact stats, but in the past 5 years or whatever it is, he's at least top 5, if not higher than that, in receptions. He's a target. He's a PPR beast.
He's your classic player that is 10 times better in a PPR format and replaying PPR format. So take advantage before his price continues to rise. And at New Orleans, now New Orleans defense could come out and play a lot better this week. No questions about it. I think that we do expect them to play a little bit better because they really couldn't play worse. But that doesn't necessarily hurt you because under any situation, he's going to be part of the game script is what we're looking for. So we can kind of agree on that one. Now, let's move over to the other side of the ball, Stefan, to a guy that you wanted to bring up. I know we all talked about him last week. And as you can see by the 46.1 average on DraftKings, he did not disappoint the masses who played him. But if you didn't play him, it was probably a situation where you needed to really nut your other picks in order to cash. And that's Alvin Kamara. Guy's got game.
Right. So, I mean, I'm a cash game player. I definitely, if there's a guy that's going to be 60, 70% owned, I'm just pretty much going to put him in my lineup. That's going to be Kamara this week. I mean, they got him and Michael Thomas. They're the Saints offense. I mean, between they got, almost half of the targets by themselves. Yeah, Kamara, he didn't get as many rushes as we may have wanted last week. But that was due to the fact that they were down and they were chasing the whole time. He ended up getting 8 carries, 29 yards, but he was the definite 3-down back. Got the goal line carries as well, scored 2 rushing touchdowns and only 8 attempts. He also got 12 targets, caught 9 of them for 112 yards and a touchdown, 3 total touchdowns. So, like I said, between him and Thomas, they're pretty much going to get everything. And Kamara, I mean, his price tag went up $200-300 from last week, and he was a chalk last week. So I don't really think nothing's going to really change this week. I mean, we've seen what Connor did to the Browns defense on the ground. So yeah, I mean, look at look at Connor from last week, and he's not even compared to Kamara the season they're supposed to have. So I definitely think that Kamara is just a free square, and you put him in on FanDuel, and don't try to get cute with it.
I would go ahead and even piggyback off of that. So if you were watching this game last week, and I watched a lot of it because there was a lot of Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara got me halfway to the cash lane by themselves. So this was a game I had to focus on because my Packers didn't play till nighttime, so I was wide open to cruise around. You saw Sean Payton try to work in the other running backs, and they failed miserably. There's the fumble that really hurt the Saints' chance to win this game. He is stuck in a spot now where the Saints are 0-1 in a competitive division where he doesn't have a choice but to play Alvin Kamara. You can't go pivot off to these other crappy backup running backs and lose this game. You can't go down 0-2 when Carolina and Atlanta are going to be chasing you. He knows he has Mark Ingram coming back in a few weeks, and hopefully then he can really limit Kamara's touches. But for this week, he's going to have to ride the most elusive runner in football. He's going to get touches. He's great in the passing game. He can run the ball. He's going to score. I agree with everything you said. It's really difficult not just to lock him in your running back spot and move on from there.
Yeah, one thing I will note really quick, though, is DraftKings with Kamara is a little bit different story. The price tag is really, really high, and there are some really good guys that are 2,000 less than him. But on FanDuel, where everybody's bunched up within a couple hundred, I mean, that's where I'm like, you pretty much just got to fit him in for a couple $100. It would be a definitely different story if they're really good running backs for a lot less expensive, but they're all in the same area. So yeah, definitely just put him in there and just kind of move on.
And just one thing I like to throw in, he's just really good at football. You know what I mean? Like, we can't forget about the talent sometimes. I preach opportunity over talent, but he's really good. So I don't know if Matt or Jeremy, you want to throw anything else in, but I'm sure you guys think he's a pretty good player. I
don't know if there's another more electric guy outside of Hill in Kansas City. He's just electric. Kamara is just electric. The guy absolutely explosive, catches the ball out of the backfield. He's going to get you rushes. Like Steph said, definitive 3-down running back in that game. There's not a more explosive. The only argument I can make for more explosive, more electric player right now in the NFL would be Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, he's pretty damn electric himself. So, and I do love the fact that the Saints lost last week for him, because if they were coming in 1-0 and they had stomped the Bucs like most people had thought, Sean Payton in the back of his mind might have a little bit more of a pitch count on Kamara. They can't go down 0-2 in this division. They need to win this one, and he gives you the best chance to win.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
All right. Matt, any agreements or disagreements on that one?
I mean, I love Kamara. That was like my darling from last year. I'm kind of upset at myself for not being harder on him, or not being higher on him going into this year and making him a priority in year-long drafts, because it looks like he's just continuing where he left off. He looks special. I agree with everything you said, Jeremy, about how between him and Tyreek Hill, I can't think of another guy that's more electric. They're special. They make plays look so easy because they can move their feet so well. It's awesome to watch.
Was anybody else a little surprised? I don't know what his ownership was on FanDuel. I was actually surprised he was only 2/3 owned in DraftKings cash games.
Yeah, he was actually about the same in FanDuel. He was I want to say 65% owned, somewhere around there. I thought he was going to be 80%. I thought him and Connor were both going to be 80%, and that was going to be. So he actually surprised me. He was a little bit lower owned than I did expect, but not too many people missed him. And I think this week he'll be even higher for sure.
Recency bias.
Definitely. All right, so those are kind of our cash game picks that we've talked about. Again, I brought up Dion Lewis. This could become more of a GPP play as the week moves along. If we find out certain guys aren't going and people want to pivot to the backup running back, he might be a little bit out. We all gushed over Emmanuel Sanders. Case Keenum has a serious hard-on for the slot. Sanders is just the guy right now. Jarvis Landry, target monster in New Orleans, works for everyone. Alvin Kamara, this one isn't exactly rocket science. This is one of the most, like you guys said, electric players in sports. So now we want to pivot over to the GPP side of things and talk about some of the plays that you guys like. So anybody want to go first?
Yeah, I don't mind.
Go ahead.
The first guy I'm going to jump to is Antonio Brown. The reason I'm going to jump to Antonio Brown is Pittsburgh has the third highest implied total right now at 28.8. Antonio Brown's $8,900. The guy is going to be over $9,000. This is probably the last time we get him below $9,000. 19.8 FanDuel points last week, 16 targets, 9 receptions, and a touchdown. He's going against Kendall Fuller is who he's going to match up look like on paper. Kendall Fuller won't travel. I think that we can look at Kansas City's previous game, and Keenan Allen is a good indicator. I think everybody would agree that Antonio Brown's a better receiver than Keenan Allen is, and Keenan Allen had a pretty big week. I think Antonio Brown's pretty much a no-brainer for those reasons this week to lock him into your tournament lineups.
I'll take that a step farther. I think you can play him in cash games too. He's a guy I have a lot of interest in. If you can only afford one, him or Kamara, it's hard not to go to Kamara. But with the game in Pittsburgh, and I don't think this can be overstated, they just play faster and better at home. His big games typically come at home. And we talked about this one, Jeremy, before we got on air. We brought it up a lot last week, which is why we were all over Melvin Gordon, Keenan Allen, and Phillip Rivers. The Chiefs' defense is living off a reputation. They're just not very good anymore. This game has huge point potential, in my opinion, on both sides of the ball. And I like Antonio Brown in any format. Year-long, DFS, cash games, head-to-head, GPPs, millionaire maker, you name it. I think he has a big day.
I love Antonio Brown here. I think he's the top play on the board for everything you said. Pittsburgh also rolls Kansas City every time they meet. Ryan, we've talked about that a bunch with the New England, Kansas City, Pittsburgh dynamic. Pittsburgh owns Kansas City. It's just what it is.
Definitely. Anything to throw in, Stephen?
No. I mean, Antonio Brown is the best receiver in the league. So for me, I mean, if you can fit him in your lineup any week, you pretty much just put him in. I mean, that's it, really. There's not really much else to say.
I want to sidebar for just one quick second because Jeremy and I were having an interesting conversation before we came on air. And listening to you talk for about a minute, Jeremy, it was everything that I've always said and reinforced by you, which I really enjoyed, of course. And that is know why you're playing somebody. And after the day's over, why did it fail or why did it succeed? Did you get unlucky or were you just wrong? I talked in great detail yesterday about how I was just wrong with not liking James Conner as much as the field. Just wrong about it. And you were talking about Antonio Brown. Yes, it's easy to know he's really, really good, but why do you want to play him on certain weeks? And if you can't explain why, that's one of the reasons newer players should subscribe to some version of a DFS service so you get to learn those little angles. Because we've all been through it. We all started playing DFS thinking we could conquer the universe because we do sports, and ultimately shelled out a ton of money before we really figured out what we were doing.
You know, that's such an important thing to understand when you hop into daily. So for the new guys, the new players that are watching this, outside of bankroll management and understanding what tournaments you're getting into, we could have a whole show on that where we talk about understanding how payouts work, etc. But knowing why you're playing somebody is so important. And I use the example of the name's going to slip my mind now, but the receiver for Carolina last year. Kelvin Benjamin, right? Absolute chalk last year. Injures his knee, right? And it's easy to look at that and be like, man, those guys didn't know what they were talking about. Kelvin Benjamin didn't do anything. Okay, if you know why you played him in the matchup, Kelvin Benjamin, hurt or not hurt, was a great play. And you have to know why. I'll give you one more why for Antonio Brown. With no Lev Bell being their second leading receiver on that team, part of the reason why Lev Bell is holding out, right, is he's like, I'm not just a running back, I'm the second leading receiver on the team. Pay me. Well, you don't have him. So that open and then Antonio Brown does not play on one side of the ball. Antonio Brown plays all four positions. He plays the slot, he'll come out of the backfield, he'll play the X, he'll play the Y. I just think that this is an absolute no-brainer because the Y is there.
It makes a lot of sense. I was looking at him real hard and almost thought about talking about him for cash games and trying to fit both on him and Kamara into your lineups. He's just the best receiver in football in a game that, I kid you not, I would not be surprised if we got to 60 points in this game. I expect offense. I was really impressed by the Chiefs' offense last game. I like Mahomes. I like Kareem Hunt. I like Tyreek Hill. I think this game could be one of the more exciting and electric games of the week. And when that happens, you know what Brown does. You would not be shocked by 10 catches, 150 yards, and 2 touchdowns this week.
No, or 8 or 16, 17, 18, 19 targets. I wouldn't be shocked by that at all either.
Nope. All right, so we all agree Antonio Brown's good. I mean, it was not too hard to come to that conclusion, but this is a week I like him more than a lot of other weeks. All right, Matt, why don't you bring up one of your guys and why you like him?
All right, let's roll with Chris Thompson. We'll start at the top. So I'm like gushing about Chris Thompson now. Watching a bunch of that game last week, which I'm sure no one else watched because it was a shitty game, but I, for some reason, caught my eye. Thompson looked really good. Finished with 60-plus yards rushing, 60-plus yards receiving, 6 catches, a touchdown. I mean, talk about filling the stat sheet. And he did this all in a game that Washington rolled, that AP had 26 rushes. Alex Smith threw 30 times, and he still ended up with like 25 DK points. I'm not sure how that translates to FanDuel. I love him in all formats, but at this price, I really like him in tournaments as either your RB2, flex. I think you can play him anywhere. I think Washington scores points here against Indy. I don't think people will necessarily go to Washington because they're not a sexy place to look at. I don't think Thompson goes unowned here. And I like him in all formats, like I said, but he's going to be a tournament mainstay for me.
And don't you think that a lot of people will naturally want to play Adrian Peterson, big name, future Hall of Famer? He had a boatload of carries last game. And they're going to look at those receiving yards and forget, like you brought up yesterday, that one of those came at the very last play of the game. Indianapolis is also a significantly better offense than going up against Arizona. So this game could be a lot more competitive. I thought Washington was relatively impressive the other day. I like Chris Thompson. And while everybody is gushing over AP, he's the guy you want in the passing game. And on the off chance that Washington comes in cocky and Indianapolis gets up, Chris Thompson is the guy who's going to be taking a lot of those receptions away. He's a relatively explosive guy as well that can be utilized in both the run and the receiving game.
I thought about that when Jeremy was talking about when the natural pivots with Josh Gordon and with Demaryius Thomas. I thought about that because I kind of thought about that when I brought up Chris Thompson and the cash game pivot, could be Adrian Peterson. Although in my eyes, I like Thompson better in all formats, but I do think AP gets love here because it's Adrian Peterson. What do you guys think?
Well, one thing I will note, about Chris Thompson is he has Alex Smith as at quarterback now. We know Alex Smith. He likes to throw the tight ends. He likes to throw the check downs. He's not the guy that goes downfield. So, I mean, even though Thompson is pretty much splitting the workload with Adrian Peterson, he is getting all the the pass catching opportunities. So I feel he is going to have another week where he's going to have probably 9 or 10 targets out of the backfield. And I mean, he's a guy. He's a big play guy. I watched him a ton last year. I really liked him, and he was a guy that like I said, he had big plays, and so definitely for GPP, I think he's a really good pivot off of Adrian Peterson.
With any other quarterback, and I'll just note this really quick, $6,200 on FanDuel, and that translated to 21.8 FanDuel points. One thing that I would note on this is, just to back up what Steph is saying, this is a situation where you get all your weapons on the field, right? And I think in the past with Chris Thompson, it's been more opportunity where you're going to play him. He's going to get the carries, and it's an obvious spot. I think in this, the difference now is with him not being the starting running back, right? The difference would be that Alex Smith is going to use the checkdowns. He is going to throw to the tight end. He's not going to force the ball down the field, and I think that makes him. It's kind of like a Dion Lewis thing for me with third down opportunities, catching the ball out of the backfield, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think Chris Thompson, the difference being now is that the opportunity is there because it's get your weapons on the field and surround Alex Smith with guys that suit his game.
You know what? It is kind of like Dion Lewis. I don't disagree with that. The only difference, honestly, it's a lot like Dion Lewis. I really want to argue that point because I don't like Dion Lewis as much, but it's just hella similar. It's just really, really similar just in terms of both their situations. I like Thompson more because I think he's a better running back, and I like the Washington offense much more in this spot. But Lewis is cheaper, so they're kind of cut from the same cloth. That's a good call right there.
The difference for me would be this: is that Indianapolis's defense is not as good as Houston's is,
no doubt.
So for the Dion Lewis situation, I'm definitely the Dion Lewis situation as third downs in the beginning, and then you're kind of waiting to see what happens with Derrick Henry. Whereas with Chris Thompson, I believe absolutely from the get-go, he's part of the game plan, where I think that's where Ryan kind of thinks Dion Lewis is going to be part of the game plan because Delaney Walker's out. I think that this has been part of Where Delaney Walker being out, now you introduce Deion Lewis. I think Chris Thompson has absolutely been a part of their game plan and getting weapons around the field from day one when Alex Smith was there.
For sure. The difference for me, just real quick, is that I have no doubt Washington's able to move the ball here with Alex Smith.
Yeah.
Like, defense is awful.
Right.
No doubt they're able to move the ball. I get all your points about, Tennessee, if they, third downs, et cetera. But I am worried that they have one of those games here, especially only if Gabbard's at QB, where they just can't move the ball at all. I think that's a legit concern that they have one of these horrible offensive days. And in that case, Deion Lewis is not providing much value. That's why I like Thompson more. But I agree. They're very similar, Ryan.
I agree with that.
I don't think Thompson makes my final lineup, but it's because we talk about because we just don't have enough positions to play everybody. But I have zero arguments against him. It's a guy I like. It's a guy I picked up in tons of my year-long leagues with the last pick because I thought he was going to be part of the offense. And if anything ever happens to Adrian Peterson and those carries go up, this guy's talented. He is a little bit of a game breaker, and I like that.
Yeah, I think we'll talk later, like more so as the week goes on. But I want to get your take on Deion Lewis versus Chris Thompson. Why do you like Lewis more?
Well, we'll talk about that further as the week goes along. And I do want to just employ one extra thing on Chris Thompson, and it's kind of my patented keep it simple, stupid method. Indianapolis defense is terrible.
Yeah, exactly. Awful.
Sometimes
we saw Joe Mixon last week ball.
Yeah, and they didn't even give him enough touches. So, guys will succeed against Indianapolis. I mean, Andy Dalton and A.J. Green and Mixon were all relatively popular last week because Indy's no good. And even though the Bengals didn't play great, those guys all really got theirs. Now, other people had bigger weeks, so they weren't huge plays, but they were all fine. You know what I mean? And they didn't even play that well.
Right. And one other thing to add to Thompson in his favor is that we talked about a pitch count and the situation that Kamara's in New Orleans. Adrian Peterson's an old man.
Yeah.
Great point.
One of the reasons maybe they won't mind driving him into the ground, but he can't keep that up forever. I know he's a physical freak, but you can't give a 32, 33-year-old running back that many touches per game and expect him to last a full year.
Yeah, I know from a coaching standpoint, right? We go into this weekly. If we have a team that's a cupcake and we're going to smash them, we're going to take our guys out. We're going to say, let's get some points on the board and let's move and get these other guys some time. I could see that happening for Chris Thompson this week with Adrian Peterson. There's just no need to run him in a game that you're going to smash somebody in.
I agree. To AP's credit, though, I will say, like I said, I watched a lot of that game. He was running hard. He didn't have a good game for no reason. He ran real hard. He never tried to get out of bounds. He always went for the extra 3-4 yards. I was impressed.
You know who else?
We're talking about it. He looks like a linebacker. I mean, he definitely got himself in shape. He's in great shape.
He looked good. He's old, and he probably won't last, but he looked good on Sunday.
Do you know who else ran hard last night, even in a bitter loss? Marshawn Lynch, that 10-yard touchdown run, man, that was a thing from the past. And it's fun to watch these old guys, kind of bring back a little bit from what they used to be and really show off that they still got a little bit left in the engine. Because when Marshawn Lynch trucked that entire team, I found that to be really impressive. And they both got that violent running style.
No doubt.
All right, next up, we'll switch back over to Mr. Matt. You like Philip Dorsett. He's got a pretty crappy quarterback. I mean, the guy's only got like 12 Super Bowl rings, so I don't even know why you like him. I'm just kidding. Tell us why, Matt.
So before I don't want to take the shine from Jeremy because it's his turn with Kittle here. We'll get to Dorsett last.
Got you. My bad.
Okay, so George Kittle's my next play, $5,600 on FanDuel. The 49ers, the fourth highest total on the board, 26.5. Last year, if you look at Kittle and the games he played, he only started 7 games. He had 16 red zone targets, and his 2 touchdowns he scored last year were from red zone targets. So he had 9 receptions on 16 red zone targets. He comes out and gets 9 targets in week 1, 5 receptions for 90 yards. George Kittle is a guy that I think by the time this season is over, his price will be close to the $65, $66, $67, maybe $7,000 range. He's going to be a guy Jimmy Garoppolo looks for. An added bonus to this, we don't know what's going on with Marquise Goodwin with the hamstring injury. I think yesterday it came out that he had just a quad bruise or a thigh bruise, so he's day-to-day. A bruise in the leg for a guy who makes his money with his legs is not something that you want to underlook. And I think that going into the year, George Kittle's a guy that they already knew and made plans for to be a part of their offense. I think they knew that last year when they made some moves with tight ends that they traded away. I think George Kittle could be really low owned in this game. And then he's going, the matchup is against Detroit. The 49ers are at home. One of my buddies who's a huge 49er fan texted me after Garoppolo threw a pick six and said that the lore of Jimmy Garoppolo was now gone. And then, I just think that maybe some of the stuff, the way they played last week, gets discounted. The one thing going on with the 49ers is they've had a lot of dropped balls. They had a lot of dropped balls in the preseason, and Garoppolo kind of took the heat for that. Like, he had an underwhelming performance in his preseason debut, but they dropped a ton of balls. They dropped a lot of balls. I think Garcon dropped a wide open touchdown. I just think George Kittle is a staple in this offense. I think they're going to have success throwing the football, and it's a guy that I really like, especially at $5,600 for the amount of targets he's going to get.
No disagreements here. I like George Kittle a lot. His price point makes sense. I don't understand everybody being so hard on Garoppolo after game one. You went to Minnesota, one of the better teams in football, and you kept the game relatively competitive. The offense wasn't supposed to be great. You lost your favorite receiver early in this game. What did you think was going to happen as an underdog on the road, home opener, losing one of your key weapons early? I don't get the hatred for Jimmy G after one game. I like the Kittle pick. I like this game to have some offense. I like the 49ers to play better this week. I'm on board in all facets.
I think one thing that the average fan doesn't take a look at is self-inflicted wounds, right? And you take a look at a situation where I believe it went Pierre Garcon drops a touchdown in the end zone, and then the next play, Garoppolo threw a pick six. So you want to talk about self-inflicted wounds. And then they lose. What was the score of that game? 24-16. They lost by basically one possession. So they didn't play bad. They went on, like you said, they went on the road to Minnesota. And again, for me, without Goodwin, even with a limited Goodwin, I just think George Kittle is going to see a good share of targets this week against the Lions.
Do you guys see that long pass that just slipped out of his hands?
No.
Yes.
Yeah, he almost had like a real long touchdown that just slipped out of his hands.
It happens. People aren't fresh week one. You saw it last night. I liked Robert Woods going into last night's game. And him and Goff, he had 9 targets. They were so close to hooking up on 3 or 4 different occasions.
Oh, that deep ball.
Right? It was just overthrown, or just, a little bit too far and just out of Robert Woods' hands. Like, things will get better offensively as the weeks progress. And some of these balls that look close will turn into receptions. They'll turn into touchdowns and things like that. So Kittle, sub 4K. I have no arguments against it. I think it makes a lot of sense.
I don't remember who said it last night, but I think it was Steve Young, actually, after the game. He said that Rams team, that basically September is the new preseason, and they may lose some games by doing things a little different in September to win games later on in October, because I think that team thinks they're going to the Super Bowl. And talk about that, how explosive they almost were. I mean, Goff didn't take one snap in the preseason. Last night was his first game snaps of the season. So I know we're on Kittle, but that's just one thing for the Rams there.
Man, when we were talking Packers-Bears going into that game, I kind of described to Matt what I thought was going to happen. I said I think Green Bay is going to play really crappy offensively in the first half. And they played really crappy offensively in the first half. Aaron Rodgers played one drive in the preseason. And even though, whether you're talking Aaron Rodgers or any of the other good players in the NFL, man, it is not easy to go a long time without playing this game and think you can just come in like that because of practice and be good. So, things like this will tighten up. I think we're getting a little off subject, but you can sign me up for Kittle in any format this week.
I agree.
All right, Matt, how about Phillip?
All right, so Ryan, this is a point that you've brought up probably 1,000 times since the season started. Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady are big on what? What
Trust.
Are they big on?
Trust.
Exactly. Look at Dorsett's game log last week, and combine that with the fact that they only really have Gronk and Hogan on the outside. Dorsett is like that guy, and I wanted to see it, and I saw it, and now I think he's honestly fine to play in all formats. We don't love the matchup with Jacksonville, but with Ramsey probably on Hogan, obviously if Ramsey is on Dorsett, you can kind of cross this one off. But I don't think he'll be on Dorsett. Not sure why he would shadow Dorsett. If you remember, this kid was good. First-round pick out of Miami, kind of got wasted in Indianapolis. I'm a fan of his upside, which is why I like him in tournaments. Now I know that New England just brought in like Corey Coleman and Benny Fowler today. I'm not worried about that at all. Who knows if those guys even dress on Sunday. Dorsett seems to be like the next guy outside of Hogan and Gronk, obviously, and I like him a lot on the outside. And like I said, I don't know about his cash, about how you feel about him in cash games, because he seems to me like a little boomer busty, but I'm not even sure about that anymore with Brady. What do you think?
Football is all about matchups. I think anybody who plays NFL DFS knows this. Jalen Ramsey, I would all but guarantee, is probably going to spend most of his time on Chris Hogan. He's the best receiver for New England. If he's shadowing Philip Dorsett, I would honestly be shocked about that. Tom Brady, being one of this, a very, very smart quarterback, is going to know that's not the situation where he wants to go. You're not going to be able to run the ball on Jacksonville really easily. This game, to me, will look a lot like the Giants Jacksonville game from last week, where it's going to be close, going to be relatively low scoring, but the Patriots will find a way to move their ball. Tom Brady moves the ball against everybody, and where else is he going to go? It seems to me like he's in a natural spot to get some receptions because they're going to need to throw it to somebody.
You go ahead.
Okay, just real quick. So I was actually, it's funny, before I even seen your Dorsett pick, I was already looking at him. I looked at him last night a little bit. Everybody was on Hogan last week. Hogan was the chalk. We were on Hogan. We had Hogan as chalk. And Dorsett, he was second on the team in targets. I was reading a stat. I think last year he had like 12 catches for 100 and something yards. And then I was watching ESPN last night, and they're like, man, this guy almost got his exact totals of last year in just 1 week. And like you're saying, with Ramsey, definitely probably going to be on Hogan. We already seen that Tom Brady trust the guy. Obviously, threw him tons of times last week. I definitely think he's a great play with some massive upside at a very good price tag as well.
I'm not overly excited about it, but I get it. And the one thing that I get is the trust thing. 7 targets, 7 receptions, 66 yards, and a touchdown. There's trust, right? He got 7 targets, and he caught all 7 of them. I think that a good comparison would be, we're talking about Jarvis Landry, and Jarvis Landry would get a lot of targets last year, and kind of unfairly they were called targets because of how bad the ball was thrown around him. This is Tom Brady. So if you get 7 targets from Brady, they're going to be dimes, right? He's going to put the ball on you. He caught all 7 of them. So with New England receivers, it's more about drops. However, the one thing that I will say is I'd have to go back and look at tape to be absolutely positive about this, but I'm pretty sure in the playoff game last year against Jacksonville, Gronk was very highly owned and didn't do anything, and that's because they used Jalen Ramsey and bracketed him. They bracketed Gronkowski with Ramsey. I think that a great pivot, again, we have good pivots on these receivers, is Chris Hogan this week. And the number one, well, I'll give you 2. One, if they use Jalen Ramsey to bracket Gronkowski, that's going to open opportunities up for Hogan. And then recency bias. He was so popular last week and busted that you can go right back to him. And I make a habit of doing that. If I love a guy 1 week and he busts, I will go right back to him because I know everybody's going to be off of him. And there's just a why for you, is that he busted, everybody will hop off of him. And then you've got to look for the opportunity. Bracket coverage on Gronkowski. If they're going to say you are not going to beat us with Gronk, you're going to beat us with Philip Dorsett and Chris Hogan, I think you could play both those wide receivers.
I agree. I'm going to take that a step further. Just preach, because Ryan knows that's like I always talk about that in baseball, going back to the spot that let down everyone, the last night. In this instance, it'll be the last week. As I'm talking about Dorsett, I already knew you were going to go there. I knew it immediately as soon as I brought up Dorsett. And I love that call. I like Dorsett a lot, and it seems like he has the trust of Brady. But let's not kid ourselves. Hogan's the better receiver, like you said, Ryan. And you're right. They did bracket Gronk with Ramsey. I could see both these receivers having games. But honestly, I love the recency bias part of Hogan. I can't get off that now that that's kind of in my head.
I think the point here is, I don't know if you said it or Ryan said it, that Brady always finds a way to move the ball, right? And the Patriots have a unique situation. I think Gronk is also playable as well in tournaments because one of those 3 guys is going to have a good day because of Jalen Ramsey. They're going to use Jalen Ramsey how they're going to use him. Either they're going to play him on Hogan and take Hogan away. Then you've got Gronk, over the middle of the field, or you've got Dorsett down the field taking the roof off the defense, right? They bracket him on Gronk. Now you've got the 2 receivers outside. So I think you can play all 3 of those guys in tournaments. I do like the Dorsett play. I just would be remiss if I didn't throw in the other parts of.
I love your point, but here, let me play a little devil's advocate, kind of what you just said. So there's a little unknown into what Ramsey will do, whether he'll bracket or be on Hogan. So why even go to either of those guys on a full slate when you can go to Dorsett, who we're pretty sure won't be, blanketed.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a great point.
And another point against it, I don't expect New England to have a monster offensive day. I could totally see them winning this game 20-13, 17-10, something like that. I mean, Jacksonville's defense is really, really good. And ultimately, I still think as long as Tom Brady's there, New England's the better team. They're very likely to win this one. But there shouldn't be a ton of offense in this game. And those touchdowns are huge. And if you're only going to get a couple of them, it's hard to know that one for sure will even come within your vicinity.
It's a great points. To your point, why go to a game that we don't think is going to have much offense? And that's just kind of why I like Dorsett as a one-off. And I like the points that you made about Hogan. That's something I'm going to really consider once we find out more about Ramsey. But to the Dorsett point is just about how you alluded to. New England can always move the ball at 4,500. Like, the more I think about it, the more I think he has a solid floor. Like, what scenario do we see Dorsett not getting at least a bunch of targets here? I don't really see one.
This is where we talk about, like, when you have a good quarterback, and everybody in the world can agree Tom Brady is a good quarterback, the ball will move at least a little bit. Will they end up kicking 5 field goals as opposed to getting into the end zone? Yeah, that's possible. Jacksonville's defense is really good. The game's in Jacksonville. But the ball will move. And you don't need a lot to pay off 4,500. Even a ho-hum day of 5 catches for 60 yards, it's not a great day, but he doesn't kill your lineup. He's just a cog in the machine at that point.
Agreed. That's exactly why I brought him up. And again, I want to say there are question marks, and that's something that now that we've brought this up, I'm going to really see. I mean, hopefully we find out about Ramsey, because if we find out that Ramsey is blanketing Gronk like in the playoffs, then I love your point about Hogan.
I don't think we'll find out, though, unfortunately. Bill Belichick and the Patriots do a good job of keeping that stuff pretty quiet, but I think we can all agree Jalen Ramsey will not be blanketing Dorsett. So no matter which way it goes, Dorsett's a guy that should be able to have one of the paths of least resistance on this team.
Exactly.
All right, guys. So that kind of covers the 8 guys that we wanted to talk over today. Big thing for us is we wanted an opportunity for our followers to kind of get to know the guys from RotoBeast. We want the guys who follow the RotoBeast guys really closely to get to know us a little bit. We're each going to take just a little bit of time right now and just talk a little bit about our service. So the big thing that Matt and I could offer you with the DFS 5-pack is our website, our information is a little bit different than a lot of other people out there. We don't have optimizers. We don't have rankings. What we do is offer you tons of information on podcasts every single week. We do one for the public, which you're hearing right now, and then we'll do a lot of other ones breaking down each position for all of our paying customers. They get released throughout the week. For those of you who like to listen to this stuff in your car where you're at work, that works out really well for you. And then comes weekend, we do a write-up where we'll have a handful of lock 'em in picks. Like last week, for example, you had Alvin Kamara, Emmanuel Sanders, guys like that. We're lock 'em in. You play these guys. At the end of the week, we gave you 2 options for quarterback in cash games. It was either Phillip Rivers or Drew Brees. So you got to make those firm picks, or you play them if you want to. And then we kind of shove the list and condense it for you. For example, at wide receiver 1, I told you could go AJ Green, Michael Thomas, or Keenan Allen. I ranked him Allen, Thomas, Green. Should have gone Thomas, Allen, Green. But it shortens it. But we still have roster variance, which is a big thing. So that way, we're not all splitting the GPP win 40 ways if we have a really good week. But we're also following the DFS guidelines and not doing full lineup sharing. So there is variance and things like that. That's a bit what we offer. We're really big on DraftKings. A lot of you guys probably already know this. So I want to give Mr. RotoBeast, I want to give you guys an opportunity to talk about your website a little bit.
No?
Yep. Jeremy, either one of you guys want to take it?
Actually, if you want to throw up dfscheatsheet.com, that's where we're at.
Okay.
So dfscheatsheet.com, we offer content, analysis, opinion. We'll be breaking down on a daily basis, position by position. There'll be a video for that. That'll be free content. We have premium content. There's a VIP level membership where you'll get a couple of additional things. There's a whole breakdown of our memberships on our site if you click the membership tab. Right now, we're extending our luxury box membership discount for 1 more week, so the viewers of this video have the opportunity to take advantage of that. $200 for the entire NFL season. Gets you full access to our optimizer, not just for NFL, but for the rest of the MLB season. Our optimizer has gone absolutely nuts since its inception. Last night had a very good showing in GPPs across the board. I believe we had members finishing as high as second in GPPs last night. Our optimizer is based off of a process. It's not just generate the highest lineup. It's actually based off of a paper process that me and RotoBeast have done over the last 2 years. Right now, also, we're giving away free memberships. We're giving away a 12-month luxury box that would cover you for all sports. We're giving away a 3-month VIP membership, a 1-month pre-membership, and then it's a $450 prize pool tournament on FanDuel for 100 people. So make sure you get in that as soon as you possibly can. The link, I believe, we've tweeted out and is available on social media. You'll be able to find it on our website later on today as we'll post it up there as well. So get in that tournament. Other than that, if you got anything else you want to add to it, that's our site in a nutshell.
Yeah, I mean, my only thing that I think is very good is, we talk about tournaments. You can't. It's hard to take down tournaments with one lineup. That's definitely for sure. So one thing that I think works very well with the DFS 5-pack and, with us here at DFS Cheat Sheet, one thing that you could do is you can narrow down to your top 5 plays, to your core plays. You can go to our optimizer, put in your top 5 plays, click optimize. You get 150 variations of your top 5 plays. And if your core goes off, then pretty much you're going to have a really, really good chance of taking down a tournament. You definitely want variants and lineups. So, yeah, I definitely think it goes hand in hand, and we can all, make some money together. And this is really going to work very well.
That's such a great point, Steph. Grab a membership to DFS 5-pack. You grab a membership to DFS Cheat Sheet. Utilize the optimizer. Go over to DFS 5-pack. Lock in their player pool. Lock in their core plays. Optimize the 150 lineups around it. Even if you enter into a 25-cent tournament, 25 cents to win, a couple $1,000, $37.50 and a couple $1,000, and it's an educated way of doing it. Those guys over there have done all the research possible to make sure that the picks they're representing and the pool they're representing are on point. And then, to go one by one and build 150 lineups, it takes a long time and a lot of work. Plug them in the optimizer, generate only from your player pool. Great. That's an absolute great idea.
One of the reasons we thought this would work really well for us to kind of get together and talk about this is because our services are different. We're DraftKings focused, they're FanDuel. We're more precise plays, they have the optimizer and a whole bunch of other tools that could help you. Some days when you got time, and if you are a multi-entry GPP player, this is going to work for you. Other days where you're getting off of work and your wife's yelling at you and you only got 5 minutes to set a lineup because you really want to play because, well, we always want to play every single day. You come read our summary real quick. You got your lineup you can set in there. It's a good complement for one another. You get all the tools you can get from both sides. You got DraftKings and FanDuel covered. We think it's a good toolbox to combine. And if you're really serious about getting really good at DFS, you could use all the tools you want. And that's where we can complement one another on this.
Yeah,
I'm sorry to cut you off, Matt. One other thing to note too, Ryan, is we talked about the why in this video, right? And there's going to be days where we're on the absolute same exact plays, right? But the why may be for a little bit of a different reason because of one key detail, and that's pricing. So, I mean, we're doing research, and I think what people need to understand is you may be on a player on one site and not on a player on another site, and the difference has nothing to do with what the matchup is or what the statistical analysis on it. Sometimes it's just absolute pricing, right? So on a day, like you say, where you don't have a lot of time, go to your guys' site. You've done all the research. The plays are the plays. The matchups are the matchups. They're not going to lie. That doesn't mean that they're bad plays on the other site. They're still good plays because the matchups are there. It just may not be optimal for your lineup. But taking your core from your site, using it for both sites on the optimizer, absolute great idea.
So that brings me to one more point I wanted to bring up, because we talked about this at length last week when we started doing more of this stuff together. And that is, we are both really big on the teaching angle and trying to give you guys knowledge so that you can do some of this stuff on your own. Some nights Matt's got stuff to do. I got kids, which means I got stuff to do a lot of nights. And we had a customer last week with a huge win on Saturday night. So big congratulations to Micah. Took down $50,000. And as you can see, a lot of this came from him learning. And I was talking to him all night long. Matt, I know you talked to him for a while. He's like, you guys taught me so much. This is all stuff that I didn't really know beforehand. And teaching is a big part of what both of us try to instill in people, because it's one thing, you can give a man a fish and he can, he can feed himself for a night. But if you teach him to fish, he can feed himself for a long time. And we want to teach you to fish.
Yeah, definitely. We're the exact same way over here for sure.
I hate when you get off philosophical on me, Ryan.
It happens from time to time.
I was going to say something that we should talk about. We can talk about when we're off air here. I love your idea, obviously, Jeremy, of, hopping on, getting a membership to DFS cheat sheet, then going on, getting 1 to 5 to DFS 5-pack and plugging in your core. We should talk about and figure out a way to possibly offer the people joint memberships. So I don't know, something to just throw out there.
It's not out there yet, guys. We'll talk it over and we'll hit you up with it if we got any good ideas based around it. So if anybody's got anything else to throw in, go right ahead. Otherwise, I think we've kept the public long enough, and we appreciate everybody who watches these videos. If you are a fan of one of ours, go check out the other one. If you are new to the channel, we appreciate everybody who subscribes. Go ahead and press that subscribe button. That's basically what I was trying to say right there before I got lost my train of thought. But ultimately, good, successful week 1 of NFL. It doesn't seem that long ago that I was sitting in my living room, crapping my pants, thinking Aaron Rodgers might be out for a couple of weeks, and then he comes in and he wins. So my team wins, DFS wins, year long went well. I think we're all so happy that NFL is back.
Right. Yeah, for sure. At the end of the day, one thing I just really, really quickly want to throw in, with the memberships, people are probably looking at it like, hey, well, they want us to get this membership and pay this and pay that. In DFS, something like this, going to our site, using our tools, going to the DFS 5-pack and using what they got. You got to look at it more as you're not getting a subscription to try and do something. You got to look at it as an investment. I definitely think you can combine the tools together. It makes some money. If you're going to spend $60, $70 a month to make, $500, $600 a month, then at the end of the day, getting the tools on both sides are definitely will be worth it as well. This is kind of what I wanted to know.
If you're only going to play for $1 a weekend, it's probably not worth it. But I look at it as an investment. And we have a lot of customers that shared the results. Most of our customers won week 1. I've seen guys playing for $400, $500, $800 a Sunday. If you're paying a $30 monthly fee or $40 monthly fee, that's a hell of an investment.
Right. I was going to say, I doubt anyone that's made it this long in the video is only playing for $1 a week. That's all I'm going to say.
Right.
The thing I would add, and this may tease a video that we can do later on together, is it is an investment, and there's a strategy that goes along with it, and this is part of the investment process. If you're a lottery ticket player, you're going to have a lot of trouble keeping a bankroll. You're going to be a guy or a girl that redeposits all the time. That's even more of a reason to not play that way. Pick up a membership, use it in investment, and look at FanDuel and DraftKings as a way to make money. You're investing in those sites.
If you're brand new to DFS, and we actually will have some people like that right now because it's the start of the NFL season, and I had a guy harassing me on Instagram yesterday he wanted all sorts of free information and things like that, telling me how much money he dropped week 1. That happens to most people. I think we all agree the first couple days, weeks, months you play DFS, you're probably going to get your butt handed to you. And if you want to get better at this and if you enjoy it, talk to people who have played every single day. I mean, for the last 5 years, I've probably sat out a grand total of 30 days. We do this every single day to try to get better. But I'm like most of you guys, I got my ass handed to me the first couple of weeks. I thought because I knew sports, I knew what I was doing. Nope. Took a lot of research and a lot of work.
That's why there's an opportunity for sites like ours, because there's a come to Jesus moment, if you will, in daily fantasy. You have got to understand that you're going to get kicked in the teeth. There are guys like us. Here's a great example, the dollar guy. If you're going to spend your $1 and put it into a GPP, a large pool GPP, thinking that you're going to win the lottery that week, there are guys like me, like Matt, like you guys that are going to max enter it, and we have field leverage on you every single week, and you don't have any of the research that we have to back up your one lineup. And that's my sales pitch always for what we do. You don't have, we spend hours a week putting this together for our customers. The average person just wants to play and have fun. Take the research part out of it, pick up the membership, and then lock and load those players.
Your average brand new DFS player probably had no idea that Case Keenum has such a love affair with the slot. And so you saw Emmanuel Sanders at close to 50% ownership last week. He goes off. And if you didn't play him, you could still win because there was enough other guys that went off. But it became tough. It became really tough to win. You had to nut your other picks.
Absolutely. Or nor did you know he was back in the slot or ever even out of the slot, right?
Exactly. Because you're just a fan. And again, we all had our teeth kicked in at one point. It is a really hard game. And it's kind of like, in a weird way, like playing professional sports. Everybody wants to be good at it, but not everybody can be the best at it or even be one of the people who is really good at it, because it is competitive, because it's so much damn fun.
So much fun.
So, all right, guys, we'll cut it off now. Again, thank you everybody who's watching. I think we both laid down our sales pitch. Hopefully picks work out this week. As I mentioned last week, we put out a ton of information. We will be putting on a ton of information again this week, but it will be for members of the DFS 5-pack. If you want to pick up our membership, we'd love to have you. And go check these guys out. If you want some extra tools to help you in your FanDuel game, no place better to go.
All right. Hey, talk to you guys later in the week.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Peace out.